Yo. Well, looks like it's time to finish the second half of the Subliminal Message Iceberg by Reddit user SemiDios. Let's jump right into it. Burger King. It will blow your mind away. Do I even need to say anything about this one? This ad features this woman with her mouth agape, ready to eat this 7-incher meat sandwich with this caption. I think the joke is pretty clear here, although apparently the model who posed for this photo didn't know that she was doing so for this purpose. You know, for a BJ joke, which seems to have upset her a great deal, making this whole ad campaign, just like everything else from Burger King, terribly tasteless. Hüsker do? Get it. Alright, first one here that I've definitely never heard of before. As quoted from an article on the topic from the website The Reprobate, quote, "A rare instance of a European board game being imported to the American market without a name change or any other significant changes, Hüsker do, which is Danish for Do You Remember, is a memory-based game that has proved surprisingly resilient as a format, despite seeming rather dull. Launching in the 1950s and still on sale today, the idea of remembering where images appear and then matching them is also a popular computer game format. Sold as both educational and fun, Hüsker do, nevertheless, found itself in trouble in 1973, when a commercial aired during the Christmas season, which featured the words, "Get it," appearing in subliminal microscopic cuts. Given that the entire 60-second commercial was designed to make you want to buy the game, it's hard to see what possible difference a subliminal message link this would make, even if it worked. But nevertheless, when people became aware of it, and the problem with subliminal images is that they're never so subliminal that they can't be seen, complaints were made to the FCC and FTC. Part of the problem was that the ads appeared in children's TV slots, and no one is keen on the idea of big corporations secretly brainwashing kids. The FCC called the ads deceptive and contrary to the public interest, and they were quickly pulled. An over-enthusiastic employee was blamed for the mistake, though few believed that. Ironically, the fuss brought more publicity to the game, which might have been the idea all along. Who is to say that the subliminal message and the complaints were not all part of a carefully planned publicity stunt, unquote. This is often thought to be the first real time of a subliminal message actually being used in an attempt to subliminally get customers to buy, well, a board game. Though I wasn't actually able to find the commercial with the subliminal message in place, and I'm not actually sure if I just didn't look hard enough or if it's possibly lost media. But either way, this did apparently exist and stands as a clear case of an attempt of using this subliminal messaging to audiences. In particular, young audiences. Dodge logo. Okay, so for this one, I feel like the whole idea is summed up in this one comparison image. Yeah, it kinda comes off as a joke, especially the whole why men are so attracted to Dodge trucks, especially because it implies anything with that shape, including, I guess, a real ram's head, is subliminally attractive to men. Coca-Cola Ice Cube BJ. This entry is referring to this promotional image for Coca-Cola, with the title of "Feel the Curves." And if you just so happen to look at the shapes inside the pieces of the ice, it looks kind of like, well, I think you get the point. This one is particularly interesting, at least because the title of Feel the Curves feels kind of like a sexual remark. So this one's maybe a little suspect, but as always, it could have been an accident. Or not. Fight Club Ding Dong. So before we even get into this one, Fight Club in general is a film that plays with subliminal imagery, in particular with Brad Pitt's character Tyler Durden appearing in the background of scenes before he has been formally introduced to the audience fully. Now, if you've seen the film, you know why this is the case. If not, I guess go watch the movie and find out, because it's a little too complicated to go into fully here, and I don't want to spoil the movie if you haven't seen it yet. Anyway, at the very end of the film, there is a few select frames where this big old cock is shown in full frontal for all the world to see. I obviously cannot show you the frame, but it's easy to search up on Google if you're that interested. This can be pretty easy to miss though, and unless you know it's there, it's sort of unlikely that you'll ever see it. But this once again ties in with the themes and ideas at play within this film. I don't really want to go into them here in this video again, but suffice to say, this isn't just a random ding-dong, and I suppose is meant to be a subliminal image that adds to the overall film. Again though, when it's something that you already know is there and can easily be found, it's kind of no longer subliminal anymore, is it? Funny that. François Mitterrand to France. So this one was hard to find much information on, as easily anyway. But from what I found, this entry seems to be referring to a subliminal message seen in the French national television daily news show as seen here. Quote, France presidential elections 1988, subliminal picture of President François Mitterrand appeared for several consecutive days in the title sequence of French national television daily news show, unquote. Now what's interesting is in my research to try and find information about this incident, I found a website called subliminalmanipulation.blogspot.com, which seems to be a database made by somebody detailing subliminal messages' impact on society, as well as the various examples of supposed subliminal messages in just about everything that you can possibly imagine. And what was interesting about this website, besides the fact that you could probably make an entire second iceberg based around the stuff he has logged in here, he also addresses a point that I brought up at the end of part 1. That being that psychologist James Vicari's tests with the whole hungry eat popcorn and drink Coca-Cola thing that would show up for a third of a second during the movie Picnic, being the first time subliminal messaging was supposedly tested on the public. However, if you remember, it turned out that that entire test was a hoax, and Vicari himself confessed to the results being fabricated, which would mean a whole lot of the bite, the power subliminal messaging supposedly has, would be based on a hoax. Well, as you might imagine, this is a topic that this website addresses, being that they wholesale believe in subliminal messages, and I think I'd better read their theory on this in full. Quote, in 1962, Vicari suddenly confessed that he fabricated the results of his experiment. Why would someone discredit himself in such a way and lose his dignity and credibility? Apparently, he was paid to make this announcement. As the saying goes, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. That's exactly the trick they are trying to pull, convincing the world that subliminal messaging does not work. And they did a pretty good job. People refuse to believe that the secret technology has been used on them for decades, if not more. Technology that invisibly modifies their choices, channels their new values, manages, motivates, and drives them into pathological behavior patterns in the interest of certain power structures. They will call you a wacko if you tell them anything like that. Yet subliminal messages are being bombarded at you continuously throughout the day, through books, movies, magazines, television, radio, and music. Every major newspaper, every poster, every magazine in America have subliminal messages, unquote. So, in case you ever wondered what people who are active in this community for lack of a better term, think of this whole affair, it's yet another conspiracy theory to them. I will admit, it is pretty strange that Hüsker would suddenly tell the truth if he lied about it to begin with such a grand scale at that. Maybe he was paid off or threatened by powerful forces. Maybe he grew a conscience and decided to come clean. Or maybe he knew the whole thing was just a big fucking hoax and knew that people were going to catch on to it eventually, and decided it was best that he come clean about it first. I suppose it could be a combination of things, but either way though, it would seem his eternal reputation is to be that of a liar, one way or another. I don't want to harp on too much more of this, but I will say that reading through this website a bit, it made me realize just how far some of this shit goes. Like claiming the folds of actual people's clothing in movies in freeze frames are subliminal messages. Like, how the fuck is one meant to pull this off? It's kind of interesting looking at the world and art through these sorts of people's lenses, as it would seem that not only is everything full of subliminal messages, but most everybody is in on it. No one ever comes out of the woodwork to confirm anything though. And not only is everybody in on it and nobody is saying anything about it, but they're apparently really fucking good at it as well, which makes it all the more interesting, the dynamic that I guess these people finding these subliminal messages must be really fucking good at finding them as well. It's a disturbing idea and reality, or state of perception to be living in. But once again, I believe it's all very much off the mark, but connects with a deeper, more real fear that once again we'll be getting to later on. Good teenagers, take off your clothes. This entry is another Disney supposed subliminal message. This one being from the film Aladdin. And I'll just play the clip here.
Leave me alone.
Down, so how's our little bow doing? Come on, good teenagers, take off. Down, come on, good teenagers, take off. On good teenagers, take off.
This is one of those cases where it's already really hard to hear what he's saying here, but then when you have the caption of what they think he's saying, it's hard to unhear that. However, in the actual script for the film, Aladdin here is apparently saying, "Come on, good kitty, take off and go." Which, if you watch this scene over again and listen very closely, you can hear the take off and go part very clearly here. It is nonetheless one of those clips that just straight up sounds like a bad line delivery, or at least a rather unclear one. ALO DIABLO. This entry is in reference to the Coca-Cola logo, which if you just so happen to flip it backwards, it looks like it says ALO DIABLO, with this little squiggly line, I guess, which in Portuguese is "Hi Devil." The subliminal message here being that Coca-Cola is saying hello to the little horn guy down below, I guess. Stephen Fry for Pope. As per quoted from Wikipedia, yes, I know, but hear me out. Quote, "An episode of the British TV show QI, or Quite Interesting, based on hypnosis, host Stephen Fry suggested that he could use subliminal messages to get himself elected as the Pope. The words Stephen Fry for Pope then briefly flashed on the screen. This was repeated later on in the episode." Unquote. That's pretty much all there is to this one. GIYGAS FETUS. So this one is pretty creepy, but it's also probably one of the most well-known in the general online circle of horror / urban legend video game based stuff. That being said, spoilers for Earthbound ahead. So in the game Earthbound, or Mother 2 in Japan, a Super Nintendo JRPG, this is what the final boss looks like. And this is its second form. Now, if you can't see the hidden image, here it is outlined. Yeah, looks kind of like a fetus, doesn't it? Well, to add to this a little bit of context, allow me to read to you this short article on the Gaming Urban Legends fandom page. Quote, At the end of the game, players notice that the lair of the final boss, the evil alien overlord GIYGAS, closely resembles a woman's cervix. In addition, in GIYGAS' final form, he reveals a spiral face repeatedly endless in the background, eventually forming the outline of what appears to be a human fetus. The fact that players defeat and kill a boss resembling a fetus after entering what looks like a giant womb has led many to believe that the main protagonists are aborting GIYGAS in its fetal stage, possibly through time travel. In a 2003 interview, series creator Shigesato Itoi revealed that he based GIYGAS on a traumatic experience from his childhood. As a young boy, he once accidentally walked into the wrong movie at a movie theater and saw a glimpse of a murder scene from the 1957 Japanese horror film Kinpei to Barabara Shibijin, or in English, the military policeman in The Dismembered Beauty, which he mistook for a rape scene. This traumatic experience influenced both the design of GIYGAS and its seemingly incomprehensible dialogue during the battle," unquote. Now, Itoi would later go against this theory by saying that the image was just a coincidence, and that none of this was his intention, which, fair enough. Though I will say on a personal note that even before I had learned of this theory, as a kid I used to love looking up the final bosses of games, just because I was always fascinated with final bosses. And when I first saw GIYGAS, not only was I really put off by how creepy it was, but also I remember thinking that the design for the second phase was a baby. Inside a womb or not, it just simply looked like a baby. And so I always just assumed that was what you were fighting. When I heard about the theory later on, it seemed even more creepy. And then of course, when the creator went ahead and said that that wasn't the case, I mean, yeah, makes sense. Still looks like a baby though. Very interesting coincidence, I must say. But oh well. It is still nonetheless quite the creepy story. Though I guess if this is supposed to be subliminal, it didn't do a very good job at it, did it? I mean, I saw it as a kid knowing literally nothing about Earthbound, so yeah, not a very good subliminal message. Slayer, Hell Awaits, join us. So, this is a time when the reversed audio of a song having a secret meaning is actually 100% real. In the song Hell Awaits by the band Slayer, the intro to the song has the band chanting what sounds like reversed audio or just very odd sounds. But when it is reversed, it can clearly be heard that they are saying, "Join us," as in, join them on their way to hell. Again, I would argue that this is closer to an Easter egg, not a subliminal message, but I think that you get the point about my point on that point at this point. Bonus entry, Mario All-Stars SMB1 Underground. So someone suggested this one to me, and I feel that you all must see it in this video by YACHT 006. He showcases a piece of subliminal messaging in Mario All-Stars on the Super Nintendo. Pretty crazy, right? Never thought Nintendo would try and pull a fast one on us all like that. And while it could be considered more of an Easter egg, this one really does hedge pretty close with how well hidden it is. Until it's pointed out to you, of course, and then it becomes so blatantly obvious what they are trying to hide here. I mean, look at this shit. Can you believe that you've never seen this before? Fucking wild, dude. Bonus entry, Spongebob Gary subliminal message. I know in the last part I said I wouldn't be covering all the supposed SpongeBob subliminal messages, but I forgot about this one, which was a case when the show itself acknowledged subliminal messages.
I am now going to assault your mind with subliminal messages. Sorry you had to see that.
To this day, I have no idea what the fucking joke was here, but I do know that when I went looking for answers, I found many people used to find this image terrifying as children. And in fact, this episode was apparently banned in certain parts of the UK for a time because of this, along with the "don't drop the soap" joke earlier on in the episode. Some people have also claimed that this subliminal message is another joke about not dropping the soap, which fair enough, but it does seem a little bit random of an image to go alongside that being the joke. Maybe it was just meant to be surreal and confusing on purpose, and furthermore making fun of the whole subliminal message thing by being so surreal and confusing that when people try to find the answer, they have to come to a realization that it doesn't mean anything. But at any rate, what's next? Food Network, McDonald's flash ad.
Here it shows the time of the Irons of America show, 11 to 12. And then of course McDonald's is a big sponsor for this. Now I'm just going to play.
Although the Iron Chef's offerings were definitely dazzling, it seems the judges preferred the beating they received at the hands of avant-garde gastronomer Amara Kantu and his very band.
Oh, did you see it? If not, there it was again. Now let's go slow-mo this time. Alright. And we're going to go at 1/15. So we're seeing every single frame right now. And I'll move my camera around so you know I'm not photoshopping this or anything. Alright. It'll come in a second. Here it comes. Ooh, a single frame of TV. McDonald's.
Yeah, this one is kind of suspect. When inquired about this apparent subliminal image, Food Network spokesperson Mark O'Connor would later say that it was a technical error that showed this flash of an image, and it has been corrected in all future airings. Meanwhile, a McDonald's spokesperson adds that we don't do subliminal advertising. So yeah, maybe it was just a technical glitch that showed this image. Or maybe it was actually a little bit of subliminal messaging. Since yet again, if it was real, then I doubt anyone involved would be like, yeah mate, we were trying to brainwash our audience. Sorry about that one. Krispy Kreme. So good, you'll suck up. Well, yeah. Once again, this comes from a TV clip on NBC Augusta, in which this showed up.
All right, thanks a lot, Liz. And as you heard, some restaurants, including here in Augusta, are looking at giving you more low-calorie options, even when it comes to donuts.
Apparently, this was a rather funny case of the news channel taking an image from Google Images and not reading the fine print of the picture before using it on their channel. Man, somebody must have gotten fired for that surely. But then again, I have a feeling that whoever did this probably did read the fine print and just wanted to play a sly little joke on the channel. Maybe he knew his days were numbered, or maybe he thought no one would notice, but who knows. Who can resist the gentle touch of palm olive? So, the subliminal message with this one is in this image of this woman taking a shower, her right arm appears to be rather manly looking, implying that either A, there's a man off screen at a very suggestive but also awkward angle, B, is meant to represent the idea that men won't be able to resist you if you use this product, or C, she just has a really manly looking arm. Which, fair enough I suppose. It could just be the way the light is bouncing off of her arm, but it could also be a male's arm here. I don't fucking know. Looney Tunes buy bonds. Now this one is just straight up as overt as one could possibly get, and also 100% real. In the 1943's Looney Tunes short, Wisecracking Duck, Daffy Duck at one point is moving a statue, and right there on his shield is clearly written, buy bonds. Now if this seems a little bit random, then you might not be aware of just how many World War II related cartoons and general content that Warner Bros. Was doing during World War II. In fact, while this was a much more subtle but still pretty overt use of subliminal messaging, you also do have the Looney Tunes shorts where they just make their stance explicitly clear.
The tall man with the high hat will be coming down your way. Get your savings out when you hear him shout, any bonds today? Any bonds today? Bonds of freedom, that's what I'm selling. Any money stamps today. Give kiddies. We'll be blessed if we all invest in the USA. Sammy!
So yeah, just in case there was any doubt, I think that pretty much puts it to bed. It really does make you wonder if they're already making cartoons where the Looney Tunes are singing about the glory of buying war bonds, why would they also do subliminal messages? I guess just to really try and get the point across and brainwash people? It's a strange thing to do. Speaking of strange things, bonus entry, ask about Illuminati. So this is one that I heard about while researching some of the other entries on this iceberg, and I think it is particularly peculiar. In the 88th episode of DuckTales, Yuppie Ducks, there is a scene where Scrooge McDuck is at his doctor's office, and in the background there is an eye chart in Dr. Von Swine's clinic that reads, ask about Illuminati Thug Boys, as shown here. Considering this came out during a time when people were especially looking for Disney-related subliminal messaging, this is quite overt. So much so that you might even consider it a joke, but even still, it's clear as day right there in the episode. This is either a clear case of subliminal messaging being used, or it's completely unknown why the animators would have had the chart say this. A few seconds later in the same episode, the eye chart is then amended to instead read as the more nonsensical Ask a Illuminatum Twig Boys, and then further amended again later to read Ask about Illuminate Tog Boys, which is again quite bizarre. I feel like this one is pretty compelling, honestly, but what do you guys think? Do you have any other theories as to why this would be here? Do you think it was just a joke put there by one of the animators? Is it a subliminal message or something else that I've not thought of? J.J. Villard's Fairy Tales Bloody Text. J.J. Villard's Fairy Tales is a dark comedy animated show that came on Adult Swim in 2020. I've not seen the show myself, but from what I've gathered, it's sort of a retelling of classic fairy tales with a much darker or weird, cynical edge. Well, throughout the 6 episodes of the show, there is a ton of Exorcist-style subliminal messages that pop up on screen for just a split second. While I won't show them all, a few select examples are texts that read, "It's okay to give up on your dreams," "Crying session at Pinocchio's house, 8 p.m, pull up," "Trust gets you killed," "Love gets you hurt," and "Being real gets you hated." And yeah, there are various other messages like that all sort of have the same cynical, the world is cruel, you're going to die, nothing matters sort of nihilistic attitude. There are also several instances of subliminal images being shown as well, such as with this witch being carried off by grim reapers, I guess, this monster with a bow on its head, what I'm gonna assume to be the big bad wolf, this clown on a truck that says your life is a joke, etc. I'm not sure if these messages hold any deeper meaning to the show itself, or if they're just random images meant to get people talking about the show, or really what else there could possibly be, but either way, it's somewhat of a more recent and kind of interesting example of something like this being done. The Young Ones Flash Frames. So in the early 1980s British sitcom, The Young Ones, there were several occasions when quick images would flash on screen as shown here, such as a dove dove, or a frog jumping, or a water faucet. Stuff that had nothing to do with the plot of the episode, or seemingly anything else. This, however, was a joke that the creators put in both as an Easter egg for longtime fans to find, since this show was apparently so popular that people would watch all 6 episodes of the first season in what they called Young One nights on VHS. And what's more is this was also done to mock those who were claiming subliminal messages were warping/brainwashing people's minds. This being a cheeky little way to poke fun at that whole discussion, as well as be very in character for the show itself, since it often dipped into surrealism and nonsensical plot points. Thus, if such a show had subliminal messages, they too would be nonsensical. Irreversible low-frequency background noise. Irreversible is a 2002 film that is about the events of one traumatic night in Paris, unfolded in reverse chronological order, as the beautiful Alex is brutally and beaten by a stranger in an underpass tunnel. So it's a pretty heavy movie, needless to say. In fact, while I've never actually watched the movie myself, I do know and have heard about it being quite infamous. Well, during the first half of the movie, a low-frequency sound is played as background noise that was reported to be inducing feelings of nausea, sickness, and vertigo, which, you know, probably didn't help with what was visually going on in the film either. If you're curious about the sound being used, I'm going to go ahead and play a small snippet of it here. Bear in mind that you're going to need a good pair of headphones to even hear it, but just in case you're scared, here's the time code for when the audio's gonna stop playing. Or if you're super brave and you want to actually listen to the whole thing in full, I'll have a link down below to a video by Darcia Owens which showcases the track, and you can see for yourself if the audio seems to make you feel sick or queasy or anything else after prolonged listening. After listening to it myself, I can say it's definitely a very weird feeling I get while listening to it. Not really sick, but just the way it vibrates in my ears kind of puts me on edge. Sort of like I'm waiting for the jump scare to happen, but it never happens. So it's not a good feeling, I'll give it that. I'm not so sure if this is a subliminal message, so much as it is an artistic choice to immerse the viewer into the film in a very visceral way, but it is at the very least pretty interesting, all the same. Oh fuck, I'm probably gonna not say this right, but whatever. Instituto de Estudos Orientais. Instituto de Estudos Orientais is a Brazilian non-profit organization without any politically partisan commitments. It is funded through contributions by its members and companies that support its mission to build a freer and more prosperous society, according to its description on Wikipedia. And this is what their logo looks like. Now, what does this look like to you? Could it be a building in front of a red sun? Or does it look a bit like someone shoving something up a big red ass? Well, either way, their logo would evidently be changed to something more suitable later on. Many islands, low fares. Spirit Airlines had this ad campaign going for a while with images like these. Return of the MILF. Many islands, low fares. Which is, well, I mean, it's pretty obvious what the joke is here. I'm not even sure you could call this one subliminal. More like a sort of sly, raunchy joke for anyone who happens to know what this word means. But yeah, bonus entry. Satanism in Pokemon. I'm just gonna let this one play out for a minute or so.
Pokemon. Pocket Monster. The Spiral. And it stands for what? Male fertility. It's supposed to be able to mesmerize and hypnotize its enemies. This character over here is called Mewtwo. Every time that you see Mewtwo, he's in this pose. 3 fingers. It means hail Satan. Cute little one. Everybody, okay, everybody go, oh, come on. His tail. It's a lightning bolt. And it's the satanic Z. The Pokemon trading card game is a new collectible card game that is made and distributed by Wizards of the Coast. What is a wizard? Male practitioner of black magic. Cute little Pokemon. Can we agree on that? Yes. Oh, I know, he's cute, isn't he? Little satanic tail. Let the camera get a view of that. These pocket monsters are creatures that inhabit the world with humans. Gotta catch them all. You don't need mom. You don't need dad. You don't need grandparents. You don't need aunts and uncles. You don't need school. And you probably don't even need a church. Because you're a master. This rap song that's played over again. And it says, I will travel across the land searching far and wide, each Pokemon to understand the power that's inside. And then it's enchanted to them. Gotta catch them all. Here's the next character. This is Misty. Look at this. If this was actually clear, you'd see that that's a halter top. It stops right there. And she's got short shorts on. She's headstrong and stubborn, constantly arguing with Ash. Typical woman. God forgive me, all right. Jesse, and the other one's called James. And listen to what it says about them. It says, prepare for trouble, make it double. Jesse and James are an evil gang looking to steal rare Pokemon. In the program, they're also prone to cross-dressing.
Yeah, that satanic panic stuff was truly something fucking wild. Seeing the devil in every detail these sorts could find. Ironically enough, weakening their own words, and by their logic, God's words. With each new thing that they would condemn, I suppose the devil truly always is in the details. So we find ourselves on the final tier of this iceberg, with our next entry, Kill and Sex, written in Gaddafi's face. So this one has to do with Time magazine's cover of Gaddafi, the once dictator of Libya before being killed by rebels in 2011. This Time magazine features a painted portrait of Gaddafi, which has been claimed to have the words kill and sex written on his face. If you can't see the supposed messages, well, then here they are, written out. Now, are these really subliminal messages? I don't fucking know. I mean, when it comes to a painting, it feels as though you could stare at them forever and find ways for the shadows and lights and brushstrokes to spell out whatever you really want. Here's an example. The word Sonic is written on this painting. Don't see it? Well, here it is. See what I mean? So while this is rather ominous, especially since this was painted before Gaddafi was targeted and killed, I'm not so sure about the legitimacy of this one. Though I should note that there actually is another Time magazine cover where people also did find the words kill and sex on it. But, well, when you put that one on, it feels like even more of a stretch to me personally, but I'll let you guys be the judge of that. BTK Killer, now call the chief. Dennis Lynn Rader. He's an American serial killer known as BTK, an abbreviation he gave himself for Bind, Torture, Kill. Between 1974 and 1991, he killed 10 people in Wichita and Park City, Kansas, and sent taunting letters to police and newspapers describing the details of his crimes in a similar fashion to the infamous Zodiac Killer. Dennis would walk into people's homes in broad daylight, deal with whoever was in his way, and would then strangle the woman of the house. The whole thing fulfilling a sick sort of pleasure for him that he developed from a very young age. Oh, and in case you're wondering, Dennis didn't actually have a bad childhood that's typical of his kind from what we know. The only thing that was going against him was his parents not really paying him much mind, not giving him the attention that he so craved. But it doesn't stop there. What's even more creepy is Dennis worked in a Wichita-based office of ADT, Security Services, from 1974 to 1988, where he installed security alarms as part of his job, in many cases for homeowners concerned about the BTK killings. In other words, he set up security systems for the very people who wanted to keep him out. He was also quite bold, with at one point calling the police on the phone at the scene of his own crime, right after having done it, being sure to get the credit that he thought he also deserved, as his twisted need for attention was seemingly endless. Well, in 1978, Wichita, Kansas television Kake TV received special permission from the police to place a subliminal message in a report on the BTK killer, in an effort to get him to turn himself in. The subliminal message included the text, "Now call the chief," as well as a pair of glasses. The glasses were included because when BTK murdered Nancy Fox, there was a pair of glasses laying upside down on her dresser. Police felt that seeing the glasses might stir up remorse in the killer. This, however, didn't work, and in fact there was no uptick in calls regarding the case, so no one else was brainwashed into calling the police chief either. Wow, who could have predicted that? But this happening at all does reveal that at the time there was some level of legitimacy that many, including the police, put into the idea of subliminal messages working. Dennis would later be caught when he started writing a ton of letters to the police around 2004 to 2005, 14 years after his last killing, and he asked them in one of the letters if floppy disks could be traced. The police, of course, said no, because why the fuck would they tell the truth to a fucking serial killer? And when Dennis sent them a floppy disk, they were able to recover a deleted Word document that tied directly to his name and the church that he was a part of. And after testing Dennis's daughter's DNA for a match, yeah, they got him. The floppy did him in. I guess for as crafty as he was quite apparently a dinosaur when it came to understanding technology. Dennis, funnily enough, even feeling betrayed that the police had lied to him, which is just you just can't make that shit up. He's currently still alive in prison, serving 10 consecutive life sentences, before he makes the big old transition to his eternity sentence in hell. Judas Priest's song triggered a self-exit of life event. Better by You, Better Than Me is a song originally made in 1969 by the English rock band Spooky Tooth, and would later be covered in 1978 by heavy metal band Judas Priest. Well, in 1990, Judas Priest were involved in a civil action that alleged they were responsible for the 1985 self-exit of life attempts of 20-year-old James Vance and 18-year-old Ray Belkap in Reno, Nevada, USA. On the 23rd of December 1985, Vance and Belkap became intoxicated before going to a playground at a Lutheran church in Reno. Belkap placed a 12-gauge shotgun under his own chin and proceeded to fire the weapon, dying instantly. Vance followed, but survived the self-inflicted gunshot wound with a severely disfigured face. He would then go on to die 3 years later. This was obviously truly terrible and beyond tragic. But what made it all the worse is Vance's parents and their legal team would then allege that a subliminal message of "Do It" had been included in the song. They alleged that the command in the song triggered the terrible event. What followed was a 3-week trial, to which was watched closely by many as if it were to be judged as true. It would set a terrible precedent for both the music industry as well as art in general, as the only solution would be censorship, and walking on eggshells to such a degree that honestly art in general could be in trouble for being blamed for, well, anything bad that happens, which people already tend to do, of course, but there would be some legal precedent to make it a court win should someone start a lawsuit over it. In the end, though, the case was dismissed, with the finding that any subliminal messages within the recording, should they actually exist, were not responsible for the self-exits of life. It's almost always a tragedy when someone extinguishes their life. And when such an event should occur, oftentimes people are searching for an answer to a heart-wrenching question of why. And often, this is how boogeymen are created from thin air, such as in this particular case. And perhaps in some ways you might say subliminal messages sort of represent a boogeyman in general, something that is unseen, thought to be found in the shadows of other things, but has no apparent victims to its name, yet is feared nonetheless. AARP 2015 commercials. So there's this PSA by AARP where this mom gets up off her seat and goes and dries her kid's hair with a towel. And there's some very low audio on her TV that, well, I'll show you the footage with the sound boosted with what is being said shown on screen real quick. Now, what the hell is this all about? What makes this one extra creepy is that it is involved with the Ad Council, with this tied closely with the federal government, which makes the implications of this subliminal message far more sinister. As far as I can tell, there's two ways of interpreting this. Someone who is making this commercial put this audio in as a joke, or this is at least an attempt at a subliminal message that is connected directly with the US federal government about martial law, which I'm not gonna get into all that, but needless to say, that would be a bad, very bad thing. You know, it's the intention that really makes this all so very creepy, and we unfortunately have no way of truly knowing what the actual intentions are. Like, all these subliminal messages could be totally 100% real, and just so happen to have not fucking worked at all, because duh, of course they didn't fucking work. But it's the idea that these companies / governments are using them with the intent of brainwashing you, or at least using the public as lab rats to see if they can brainwash you. That is truly the scarier idea. If someone gave you a cup that they assumed was filled with poison, but it just so happened to be apple juice, well, I mean, of course, you can kind of laugh about it and be like, well, that was just fucking apple juice, so I'm fine. But then you gotta like stop and look over at that guy that just gave you the apple juice and think, man, you're just like thinking I was gonna die, and you were okay with that. Are we cool? National Anthem 1960s TV sign-off. So this one's about a 1960s National Anthem TV sign-off, as you might have guessed, but with subliminal messages throughout it, such as, trust the US government, God is real, God is watching, believe in government God, rebellion will not be tolerated, obey, consume, buy Ultra, buy Naomi, worship, consume, obey, believe, do not question government. Now, several people have pointed out that the original uploader of this video, Naomi, 1963, back in 2009, the description says nothing of the subliminal messages that are in the video, despite the user's name so clearly being referenced within it. Now, here's the part where I ask you guys for help. I remember a few years back, somebody here on YouTube, I'm almost sure it was either Scare Theater or blame it on Jorge, but I've looked through the video catalog and I can't seem to find this video, but somebody like that made a video about this video and channel and provided some pretty good evidence for why it's most likely fake. That video has stuck out in my mind and was what I immediately thought of when I first saw this entry on the iceberg. However, in looking for that video, I've found no luck. I'm unsure if it was deleted or maybe if it was made by someone else that I just can't remember, but if anyone else remembers that video and would like to point me in the right direction of it, I'd be quite thankful. That being said, this one, the actual subliminal message in the video here, is pretty well considered to be fake. But it's not totally out of the ball of possibility though, since when others tried to find a different copy of that National Anthem TV sign-off from someone else to see if it would also have subliminal messages, they did find that the different version of the sign-off didn't have subliminal subliminal messages. However, the image of that particular unaltered video is cropped, implying that the video with the subliminal messages is the original, or at the very least, the version with the cropped edges is different from the one that we have here, meaning we haven't found an exact copy of this 1960s TV sign-off. Either way though, it's most likely fake, especially the weird font changes and some other effects that don't really add up at all. Again, I remember the video that I'm referencing before might have actually like scanned the video through something and like went in really deep and found that the effects on the subliminal messages just seemed too modern, like it was done with a video editor nowadays rather than something that they had back then. But I can't find that video for reference, so just take my word for it, and if anyone happens to know where it is, let me know. But all the same, this is still quite creepy. Bonus entry: Bored Apes Yacht Club. This entry was suggested by my Arch Owl patron, Judas. And my god, is this an entire rabbit hole of crazy shit all in of itself. Now, I do need to be careful and note here that this topic is kind of all over the place, and the biggest video about it on this website has, for all intents and purposes, been shadow banned. As it's nearly impossible to search it up on YouTube by itself. You'll find like a bunch of reaction videos to this video, but the actual video itself is rather difficult to find, meaning that there is some level of censorship going on here. Though it should be noted that that's probably not because YouTube is like, I don't know, looking out for cryptocurrency companies or Nazis or something. It's probably because the title of the video is called the Bored Ape Nazi Club, which, yeah, anything with Nazi in the title is going to be shadow banned on YouTube, so yeah, that's probably why it's not showing up in the search results. But nonetheless, I can't really go into all the details of this rabbit hole, but the broad strokes are, you know, the bored monkey NFTs everybody was talking about for fucking months? You know, they look like shit and whatever? Well, the creators of this NFT chain seem to have created them with the express purpose of trolling in mind, with Nazi imagery / symbolism being used in nearly all their branding, including this quite interesting piece of evidence: the Bored Ape Yacht Club logo being an ape version of the Nazi SS logo. It's nearly identical in style, logo placement, etc. The fact that it actually took people a little bit to make this connection is a little funny, but also really fucking crazy. The apes themselves are also seemingly supposed to be racist caricatures, and they had this whole ARG thing that was also tied into the Nazi philosophy. It's an overwhelming amount of evidence, honestly, to the point that it would have to be some kind of out-of-universe coincidence to not be the case. There is more to it, and I would highly suggest watching some of the other videos that go into more depth if you want to know more about it. But yeah, the long and short of it is, the ugly Bored Ape NFTs were actually created by a bunch of 4chan trolls in order to get the public and celebrities to endorse, buy into, and further propagate and showcase National Socialism imagery, all while they get paid a handsome amount of money from the whole thing. It is a subliminal message of sorts, but uniquely made to troll the public and manipulate rich people into endorsing the subliminal message. It's pretty fucking crazy and out there, but now plenty of people know about it, so I suppose their NFT trolling subliminal game is more than likely over. But my god, what a twist. Bonus entry: Sarah Ali's Quran videos. So this one is quite disturbing. There is this channel that goes by Sarah Ali, which had two videos, one titled Quran and the other titled Quran for Sleep, both of which mostly consisted of readings of the Quran. But there is of course a twist to both of these videos. They have subliminal messages in them at points later in the video, when the listener is more than likely asleep. Take a listen to them.
Pills easily. I can swallow pills like anybody. I overcome my fear from swallowing pills. I can swallow pills easily. I can swallow pills like anybody. I overcome my fear from swallowing pills. I can swallow pills easily. Owen Brown gets dumped and ghosted by any woman he is dating. Owen Brown gets dumped and ghosted by any woman he is talking to. Owen Brown gets dumped and ghosted by any woman he is dating. Owen Brown gets dumped and ghosted by any woman he is talking to. Owen Brown gets dumped and ghosted by any woman he is dating. The relationship between Owen Brown and any woman he is talking to get destroyed. The relationship between Owen Brown and any woman he is dating gets destroyed. Brown is spending the rest of his life with me. Owen Brown is spending the rest of his life with me. Owen Brown is coming back to Oric University for me. Owen Brown listen to every word I say to him. Owen Brown listen to every order I give him. Owen Brown listen to every word I say to him. Owen Brown listen to every order I give him. Owen Brown listen to every word I say to him. Owen Brown listen to every order I give him. Owen Brown listen to every word I say to him. Owen Brown listen to every order I give him.
Yeah, if you couldn't tell, the Owen Brown thing seems to imply that this was very personal. An ultra-select subliminal message. Though as YouTuber Gooseboost knows, which by the way is the only way to see these videos since they've been taken down, this seems more than likely to be a strange chant, like dark magic or something. Since Owen Brown is unlikely to actually watch this video, it's more like a strange call to the universe, a prayer to manifest these things into reality, which is pretty disturbing given what the messages are. These videos have since been copyright claimed, as I noted, as they did have audio from other official readings of the Quran. But overall, it's an interesting case. Makes me wonder if there are any other videos out there with looping for hours worth of audio that randomly turns into subliminal messages or sneaky jokes or something later on. Imagine you're listening to a nice relaxing bit of music to fall asleep to, and 5 hours into the music, some guy just starts yelling, "Nightmare, nightmare, nightmare!" or something like that to try and fucking manifest nightmares in your brain. Boy, oh boy. That sure would suck. Igor Smirnov / David Koresh FBI phone calls. While these two entries are separate on this iceberg, as far as I could tell, they are very much connected and are about the exact same event. Now, if you've never heard of or don't know any details about David Koresh, his cult, or the standoff between his cult and the FBI in Waco, Texas, I would highly recommend Wendy Gunn's video on the topic. It's the definitive coverage of the story in my books, and pretty well explains all sides of the conflict fairly. Also, there is the Netflix series Waco, which is also pretty good. So if you want to know more about this topic, I'd go watch those first. But for this iceberg entry's sake, all you need to know is that David Koresh was a cult leader. His cult were known as the Branch Davidians. They lived in a compound in Waco, and there was some shady shit going on in that compound. But, shockingly enough, the FBI were doing arguably even more shady shit on the outside, which led to a gunfight and a standoff between the two groups that was heavily televised and lasted for 51 days. The FBI wanted this whole thing to end as quickly as possible, and the whole thing was going on for far too long. And during a sizable portion of the siege, the FBI were on the phone with David Koresh and some of his followers, as negotiations went on for some time. Well, the FBI tried various forms of negotiation to get this whole thing settled. Well, up to a point. Again, watch Wendy Gunn's video for more context, but let's just say that the FBI desperately wanted and maybe needed a win at this point, as the public perception of them was at an all-time low. This would eventually lead to forms of psychological torture to get the Branch Davidians to crack being used by the FBI, which, given what the FBI claimed they were afraid of happening, that being a mass self-exit of life event, this was more than a dangerous game they were playing. This was almost asking for that result, actually. This included playing loud screaming, buzzing, and oddly enough, dolphin noises late into the night, so that no one in the compound, including the many children in there, could get any sleep. This finally leads into our subliminal messages. Igor Smirnov is a controversial Russian scientist best known for his role in Soviet-era mind control research, as well as an obscure field of human behavior study he called psychoecology. He was a rather interesting character, shall we say, as well. He was often characterized by the media as a Rasputin-like character, with almost mystical powers over persuasion. According to his wife, Ralsukina, the Soviet military enlisted Smirnov's psychotechnology in the 1980s to combat the, I'm gonna probably get this fucked up, Mujahideen and treat post-traumatic stress syndrome in Russian soldiers during the war in Afghanistan. Smirnov founded the Psychotechnology Research Institute of the People's Friendship University of Russia, my god that's a long name, to work on ideas like psychocorrection, a term he used to denote the use of subliminal messages to alter a subject's will, or even modify a person's personality without their knowledge. Well, bearing all that fun stuff in mind, the FBI actually consulted Smirnov regarding the Waco siege at the time. Smirnov proposed piping subliminal messages from sect members' families through the phone lines during negotiations so as to psychologically control and manipulate a surrender out of David Koresh. There might have also been talk of using the voice of God to have a similar effect on David. However, the FBI ended up not going through with that plan. Ironically enough, this probably wouldn't have worked at all and would have been one of the far less dangerous ideas they would have tried, especially given what actions they did take, which led to the deaths of so many children in the final day of that standoff. Undiscovered subliminal messages / the darker truth. So for our final entry of this iceberg, we're left with the idea that perhaps the darkest and maybe even the most successful subliminal messages have been the ones we've yet to, or perhaps may never, discover. However, I'd also like to touch on a consistent theme throughout this entire iceberg, that of free will. The truth is, most of these subliminal messages, whether they be real, fake, a joke, an Easter egg, regardless, there isn't really any proof that any of these supposed subliminal messages had any sort of impact on anyone's mind. For as much power as some give them, it seems sort of like a dated idea at this point, right? I suppose someone who deeply believes in subliminal messages, abilities over our minds, have plenty of arguments for how we would never truly know what impact they have on our minds, because why would they dare tell the truth? And how could we truly know if it was done subconsciously? Which I believe is an interesting rabbit hole, because when you create a concept with endless possibilities, it almost becomes impossible to truly debunk, because the very idea is that when it's theoretically working, you would never see it. Sort of similar to the Matrix idea that we're all living inside a simulation. You could find a million reasons for why this isn't the case, as well as a million reasons for why this is the case. But ultimately, it all just sort of adds up to nothing, and everyone's just talking in circles. It's more of an interesting philosophical idea than it is an actual reality thing. This connects with what I believe to be the true horror of subliminal messages, why people are so interested in them, or scared of them, because they are the old fear that our actions are meaningless, that our own choices aren't our own, that something, perhaps someone sinister, is secretly controlling us, pulling the strings without us ever knowing. To believe in subliminal messages is to believe that we either have no true free will, or that it can easily be manipulated without our knowing. I think this is why religious groups often bring up the devil being behind this whole thing, because in essence, it would be the perfect mockery of God's creation, gifted with free will, yet so easily manipulated, controlled rather. In this scenario, the devil would be proving that humans' greatest gift, free will, is meaningless and so easily taken away. Unlike the serpent convincing Eve to eat the fruit of knowledge, this would cut far deeper. But of course, you don't even have to approach this from a religious standpoint. You can just come from it from a point of, do you believe your actions and your thoughts are your own? Do you believe that your actions, your accomplishments, your failures, your dreams, the very words that stream through your brain, the images that you come up with, the choices that you make for yourself and those around you, do you believe that those are your own? Because if you do, then subliminal messages, so too, make a mockery of this notion that you can somehow be manipulated through literal microseconds of an image or a word being showcased. I think we all have this fear of a greater evil in the shadows, fear of the unknown, not just of its matter, but of its intentions. However, truth be told, the government, the media, how people in your own life already have other far more easy ways of manipulating others. They can do it through their emotions, through false information, through the lens by which they tell stories, all of which are things that can be used to actively shape your and others' perception of reality. And this is not something that is hidden. It is right in front of us all. And most of us don't even think twice about it. And even those that do know that there will always be those that will allow themselves to be manipulated. Now I ask you this, when we live in such a reality, what use are subliminal messages when good old propaganda is so much more effective? But that's just some food for thought. But all the same, subliminal messages are at least a pretty interesting idea. That words and images being flashed on screen can shape our everyday decisions. But I, for one, believe that subliminal messages are but only shadows of something far more real, and perhaps far more scary to have to deal with. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for the Subliminal Message Iceberg. I want to give a huge shout out to all my patrons and YouTube members, including all of my night eggs and night owlets, and a very special thank you to all of my great night owls, including Forgotten Ace, Macabre Kaiju, Medusa's Hex, and Ho Hot. And then a super duper special thank you to all of my arch owls, including the Good Chi Vibes Zen Garden Party, the Symphonic Judas, the Spooky Sassy Jump Scares Lore Master, Doggy and GT, and the marvelous Maximus Brime. Until next time, this has been Dylan the Night Owl, flying off.